George Russell just dropped 8 tenths on the next best non-Mercedes driver Hadjar, and I've challenged myself to do the same on the F125 game, as well as give you my take on what was a very interesting 2026 F1 Australian Grand Prix qualifying. Now, just a quick note, obviously this is on the F125 game, which uses the last year's generation of cars, so I've had to do a bit of tweaking to the setup and effectively just lower the wings to 0-0 just to make sure we have minimum drag and least amount of downforce. I've also raised the ride height to 50 just to also reduce the downforce and simulate a bit of a rake that the 2026 cars have. Now, as you can see here, this is just my first run in the qualifying session, which I've done in Grand Prix mode, because that's the only way I can manage the battery the way they do in real life. And just a quick note, it is difficult to manage this battery because obviously it's not a 50-50 split like in the 2026 cars, where when that battery is turned off you have half the power available. Here on the game it's a bit more, so I've been balancing between going on none in the braking zones and everywhere else just to simulate that lower power. On the straights I'm doing overtake mode because obviously that depletes the battery the quickest and gives you the biggest power boost. Now, getting onto that 2026 qualifying in Australia, well, it was to be expected. I think that Mercedes were going to be the quickest car, but I don't think anybody expected them to be that far ahead. 8 tenths to the next best car is something, and of course, as good as the job Hadjar did do in qualifying today, I think we can all agree that if Max was in the car he probably would have gotten a bit quicker, maybe maximum 2 tenths, because Hadjar was quite close to him throughout the whole weekend. It's still a sizable advantage over the rest of the field. Kimi Antonelli would have been a bit closer had he not crashed in FP3. He would have had the chance to actually set up the car properly, and effectively he only had a chance to set a lap because Max crashed in Q1. Let's get onto that right now. That was a very strange crash. From the reaction of everybody, we all knew that it wasn't Max's fault from very off, and the onboards showed that it was effectively rear locking that he got from the, well, we can assume it was the regen, which is quite aggressive on this year's cars. Yeah, not Max's fault. Glad he's okay, because that was quite a bit of a whack. But overall, it was disappointing not to be able to see a comparison between him and Hadjar, but we'll see tomorrow. He's going to fly through the rest of the field. Another very interesting thing is the field spread. Gap was nearly 5 seconds between P1 and P19. Obviously 3 cars did not set a lap time. That's a huge field spread, and you could really tell from the way the top 4 teams were approaching qualifying. For example, Ferrari started off on the medium tyres and they comfortably made it through to Q2 on the mediums. Just overall, all the teams were able to save 2 sets going into Q3. It's a long shot from where we were last year, where the field spread was maximum 1.2, 1.3 seconds. At times it was even a second. There was just hundredths separating cars going into Q3. Q2, it was difficult. It was not a given for anybody to make it through, unless you are McLaren, of course. Shout out, I guess, to Racing Bulls, 2 cars in the top 10. A very good performance from them, especially with the Red Bull powertrains. I think it confirms to us that the Red Bull powertrains team have done an incredible job. Arvid Lindblad at the end did get a bit unlucky, I think. I haven't seen his lap, but he seems to have made a mistake. Made Lawson effectively out-qualify him, even though he was behind him for pretty much the whole of the session and most of the weekend, in fact. Audi also surprised me, qualifying P10 and P11. I think I didn't have them that high up. I certainly did not expect them to be ahead of Haas and Alpine, who had very good tests from the outside looking in. For the rest of the teams, there's nothing much to say. They were quite close between themselves. Alpine, Williams, Aston Martin were very far off. Cadillac as well. They're doing well for a team that's completely brand new. As we all expected, they're going to be very far off. I've got the gap down as 7 tenths between Alonso and Perez. So even Aston Martin, with that shocking engine and vibrations and everything, they still managed to out-qualify the new team. So I'm really looking forward to what happens tomorrow in the Grand Prix. We've got Max Verstappen driving through the back of the field, trying to effectively just aim for that top 6, top 7, which I think is very doable because we saw the pace gap between all the teams. I think there's probably at least a second between the top of the midfield and that Red Bull car effectively. So I expect him to be able to make his way forward fairly efficiently and potentially fighting the back of that top 7 group of Hamilton, definitely the McLarens. A lot to look forward to. The race start as well. I know Hadjar's starting in P3, but you could tell from his interview that he's very happy just to be there, and he knows it's going to be very difficult to hold on to it the start tomorrow. Ferrari have had rocket ship starts. I wouldn't be surprised if Leclerc overtakes Hadjar and potentially even one of the Mercedes going into turn 1. Hopefully we'll see a lot of fighting, good overtakes, and this carnage of lifting and coasting in qualifying isn't as prominent over a Grand Prix distance as it is over one lap. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you have, leave a like and subscribe.